We're into the final days of the window, and if I'm being honest, I feel like a major signing is becoming less likely by the hour. We'll get into that, the update on Kieran Tierney's future, and we'll preview our trip to Girona, a game you can follow in full via our YouTube channel tonight with our interactive watch-along. All of that and more to come on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. But first, a message from our partners. This video is brought to you by Stocks FC. Stocks FC is the football stock market where you can buy stocks in your favorite players and earn cash rewards based on their real-life performances. To get you started, they're giving away 5 free stocks to every user that signs up this month, offering you the chance to familiarize yourself with the platform. Buy stocks in young players you fancy to prove themselves and watch their stocks rise, or invest in those you see as solid performers who will maintain their value. Earn weekly dividend payments every time your players score goals, make assists and play key passes. Your free loan stocks are eligible for payouts for a month, so why not give it a go? To claim your 5 free loan stocks and begin your journey, scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description. I'll be taking you along on my journey throughout our upcoming videos. Join me on the ride, Stocks FC. Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. How are you all doing? Hope you're enjoying this cold weather in London. If you've made the trip out to Catalonia for the game between Girona and Arsenal, you are very lucky. And I hope you guys have a great trip, a safe trip. But I'm sure you're experiencing much better weather conditions than we are experiencing here. I was really sort of downbeat about the weather. Maybe a week or so ago, it was really starting to get to me. The cold, they're getting dark early, all the rest of it. They're having to come and put the heating on before I'm going to do a piece of work, etc., etc. And then I went to Cyprus for a few days and I was walking around without a jacket and at times in a t-shirt. And I was like, this is great. And now I've come back to this and it feels even colder than it did before. So yeah, not in the greatest of moods with regards to all of that. And not in the greatest of moods with regards to the business that it looks like Arsenal won't do between now and the end of the window. We're going to get into that. We're going to get loads of your thoughts and comments from the live chat, so keep them coming. We'll also give you details of tonight's watch-along, which you can join us for. And I promise you, it's going to be something a little bit different to what you normally find online. I work as a commentator, so I'm going to try and provide you guys with a kind of loose commentary whilst being interactive with you guys in the live chat. We'll keep an eye on every kick in the Girona versus Arsenal game, and we'll keep you up to speed with all of it. So if you can't follow the game or you'd prefer to sync us up with your pictures or whatever it is that you want to do, please come over and support. I'd really, really appreciate it. Haven't done one of these in ages, have wanted to do one for a long, long time. Finally have an opportunity to do one. So we're going to make the most of that tonight. So make sure you come over to the YouTube channel. At 7:45 p.m. we're going to kick off and we'll take you right through the game. I know for some of you, the timing just doesn't work and that's fine. Dr. Pepper says, I'll try a 4 a.m. wake up, Harry, but it will be tough after a long day, mate. I wouldn't expect you to get up at 4 a.m. to listen to me bleating on. Okay, let's get into today's topics then. A lot of frustration around is kind of what I'm sensing at the moment. Arsenal don't look as though they're going to do anything major, but we'll come on to that in a minute because we're going to start off by talking about a potential outgoing, an outgoing that's all but been confirmed. However, the timing of it still remains up in the air. Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers has confirmed that Kieran Tierney will be joining Celtic in the summer. That is the plan currently in place. He also confirmed that the Glasgow Giants would like to do a deal to take the Scotland international to Parkhead sooner. So it sounds like there's some ongoing negotiations over whether or not that is a possibility. Now, to be clear, I'm happy for Kieran Tierney because I think he deserves a move that is going to see him play football. And he deserves to have the opportunity to play the next few years of his career as regularly as he can, right? It's been a bit of a sad story, Kieran Tierney and Arsenal. He came in with so much promise. There were always questions, I think, about his fitness record even before we signed him. But obviously the club felt at the time it was worth taking a bit of a punt and a bit of a gamble on him. They did that. And for a long time, we were looking at Kieran Tierney and thinking, this guy is the real deal. Talent's never really been a question, never really been an issue for me when it comes to Kieran Tierney. There's two things that have stood in his way and two things I think that have prevented him from having the Arsenal career that he should have had. The first one is fitness, obviously, the number of injuries, the volume of injuries, the severity of some of those injuries, and how long he was out for as a consequence saw us get to a point as a football club where we just couldn't rely on him anymore. So that was the first thing. The second thing for me was style. And again, that's not a slight on Kieran Tierney or a stick to beat him with. I think Kieran Tierney is a very, very good fullback, but he's a very traditional fullback. And in an era, in a modern day, especially at the bigger clubs where we're seeing all sorts of different uses for fullbacks, and we're asking them essentially to do very different roles at times, it just felt like Kieran Tierney became a bit of a kind of square peg in a round hole at Arsenal. And again, I've got incredible sympathy for him because I really wanted him to succeed at Arsenal Football Club, and I don't want to see him go because I think he's a great person to have around. Look, the thing that I think really kind of drives home that point is that even when it's been abundantly clear for a long time that Kieran Tierney isn't a part of the Arsenal plans, and even when it's been abundantly clear for a long time that Kieran Tierney will be moving on, Mikel Arteta has still brought him on in recent games ahead of other people that you would say probably do have more of a future, or whose futures at least were not decided like Kieran Tierney's was. So the fact that Mikel Arteta would bring him on and would use him and would have him in the squad, etc., and would trust him says so much and speaks volumes, doesn't it, about Kieran Tierney's character and influence around the place. Never been a problem player, even despite the fact that he was signed to be our fullback and was very, very quickly pushed aside and replaced by someone who was of a completely different profile. He never spoke badly about that. He never, I'm sure he questioned it internally. I'm sure he questioned it within his own mind, but he never publicly went on record and caused an issue or any sort of problem. Always very humble about it. And Arsenal were really kind of improving, weren't they, during that period of time, especially. And so it became very obvious and very clear that Mikel Arteta had made a decision that was best for the team. So if Mikel Arteta makes a decision that's best for the team, who can kind of really argue it? That's where I guess he was probably looking at it from, and he decided not to get involved in the nonsense and decided not to cause a problem that was completely unnecessary. Instead, he remained humble. He focused on his fitness. He went out on a loan to Real Sociedad, etc., etc. He comes back, and it looks like that move to Celtic now is almost done. It'll probably be for the summer, and I think that's partly because it looks like there's a chance that Alexander Zinchenko leaves. And if Alexander Zinchenko leaves and Arsenal can do a deal with Dortmund, which is what's being reported for an initial loan, but with a 20 million euro obligation to buy him at the end of the season, that would be a fantastic piece of business for another player who's fallen far down the pecking order at Arsenal and is not a first choice anymore. We paid 35 million quid for Zinchenko, 3 years ago now, 3 years ago probably. He was really, really key in getting Arsenal on the right path. Him and Gabriel Jesus just instantly raised the level. But we've moved beyond those two players, unfortunately for them. And so if you can find someone out there who's willing to put sort of 20 million on the table for Alexander Zinchenko, even if it is money that's going to come in 6 months' time or whatever, then you do it. It's a good bit of business. But that might stop Arsenal allowing Kieran Tierney to depart right now. Miles Lewis-Skelly's emergence as a left-back option maybe counteracts that a little bit, because I don't think at the start of the season people were looking at him as a serious candidate to play at left back, but whenever he's played, he's done brilliantly. And as we discussed on the bonus pod that we released late last night, his ban that was going to see him miss 3 games due to that ridiculous red card has now been overturned. So he is available. Maybe that will help Kieran Tierney out here. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's the latest on the left back situation. That's the latest on Kieran Tierney. Celtic working to try and get a deal in place that would see him go initially on loan to Celtic Park before joining up with them permanently at the end of the season. But I just wonder whether Arsenal will facilitate that. There's always a part of me that thinks, like, when a player's been as loyal as Kieran Tierney has, and I've mentioned all the things that he could have done, all the issues that he could have created or caused, and all the things I guess he could have said. He didn't. He didn't do any of that. Does that then mean that we maybe owe some loyalty to him? Does that mean that we at least consider letting him go early to Celtic out of a sort of loyalty to the player and as a thank you for his service? I would like to think that we could do that, but in the situation that we're in and with the number of injuries we've had this season and continue to have this season, we probably shouldn't leave ourselves short. So this is one of the rare occasions where I'm going to say we should be a bit selfish. We should focus solely on our needs as a football club. And although this player has been exemplary and brilliant, and probably deserves more than most to get his wish granted, I think we probably need to keep a hold of Kieran Tierney at least until the end of the season. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about the striker signing that everybody wants, but everybody's probably not going to get. So this is not based on any report. This is not based on, a major journo coming out and saying this, but this is based primarily, I guess, on my own personal feeling. And, I'm happy to put this out there. I just think the chances of Arsenal signing a big name striker for big money are weakening and lessening, diminishing, if you like, by the hour. It really does feel that way. Like, you feel like if we were going to do a significant bit of business, we'd have done it by now. It's the 29th of January. Of course, the window runs until the 3rd of February. So there's a little bit more time than normal. But at the same time, like, you just can't see a world where the stars align within that short period of time and we're able to go out and get the player that we want. Now, we touched on John Duran yesterday as an option, the Aston Villa man, and we talked about the fact that he'd been the subject of an offer from West Ham United, which I think was to the value of around about £57 million. And we talked about the fact that maybe Arsenal should test the waters on this. It looks like Al Nassr of Saudi Arabia are interested in him now. They're looking at him and Victor Boniface. They want one or the other. And according to Sky Germany, which was a report that I read just shortly before coming online, it was said that Al Nassr are going to table a bid of £57 million for John Duran. So clearly, there's some kind of messaging out there, maybe from John Duran's people, that around the £60 million mark could do it. Now, I don't think that Aston Villa are going to accept that initial offer. They'll know exactly how well lined Al Nassr's pockets are. But yeah, like, it's interesting, isn't it? Because West Ham have gone in and made an offer to a similar amount. Now Al Nassr are doing the same thing. Does it mean that John Duran is available for around about the £60 million mark? In which case, is he worth taking a punt on? Is he worth trying to sign? Is he worth trying to pick up? I sort of toyed with this idea on yesterday's episode, and I said very clearly that if we're talking 65 million, maybe it's worth a go. But once you start going into the realms of 75 and 80 million, which is what was being talked about the day prior, then it gets stupid, then it gets crazy, and then I'm walking away. But I just wonder if this is one that Arsenal are maybe keeping a close eye on. Obviously, Evan Ferguson, we discussed yesterday as well. He is available for permanent transfer. That was reported yesterday, and those reports continue into today. And Bayer Leverkusen, I said, to be leading the way on the Irish forward. So he looks like he could well be leaving Brighton between now and the end of the window. Should we be going after him? Again, something that we touched on the bonus episode, I think, yesterday when we were reacting to the Miles Lewis Skelly decision. But look, talking generally, because we could talk about names all day. We've been talking about names for a month, and none of them have materialized into anything of note or anything worth discussing. So let's talk about the general picture. The bigger picture is that Arsenal need attacking reinforcement. And Mikel Arteta has been so clear on that. And I didn't really expect him to be. I thought that he would give it the whole, it is what it is, etc., etc. We're going to do, we're going to do what's best for the team. We're going to do what's best for the squad. We'll only add the right player. And we've had those messages as well. But there's also been an acknowledgement and acceptance of the fact that we need to do business and that we're short, which surprised me a little bit. I've got to be honest. One of the things that I've often accused Mikel Arteta of, and it's something that I used to accuse Arsene Wenger of back in the day. And I understand that to a degree, you have to be mindful of what you say regarding your employer because that's the way of the world, right? But there was a part of me that in the past looked at Mikel Arteta and went, stop being a company man. Like, stop being a company man. Like, just say it how it is at times, because when we're going through a difficult period, when there is discontent among the supporters, sometimes the supporters would much rather that you just spoke openly and honestly about the situation instead of trying to paint a far prettier picture than the one that we're actually seeing. And so when he come out and said this stuff, I thought, good. He's sending a message to the board. I think some of his decisions in terms of who he's included on the substitutes benches as well have also been messages to the effect of, you need to support me with a forward player. Look, we wanted to get one in the summer. We couldn't get our primary target. I settled for Raheem Sterling. We've now got 2 injuries to 2 really key attacking players. And now we're desperate and we need to act. Otherwise, we risk throwing this season away. And so we get into the January window and you start to feel a little bit of confidence that maybe Arsenal are going to do something. And you hear the likes of Sesko linked, whispers about Alexander Isak again, although I never really ever thought that that was possible in the January window. We heard Victor Gyökeres, we heard Victor Osimhen, we've heard Evan Ferguson, John Duran is being talked about now as well. And there's a whole host of names that have come up, yet Arsenal haven't made a move as far as we're aware for any of them. Not for a single one. And the transfer window is almost closed. And so the reaction from the fans who can all see that we need this player is going to be a negative one, a toxic one. It's going to spill over into some ridiculous opinions online. And we've seen lots of that over the last few years. So, you'd be almost naive not to expect it these days. But I feel like we're in a really, really tough position because I sit here today, as I say, on the 29th of January, sitting there going, we need a striker. We absolutely have to get one. And if we don't, it could be the undoing of us this season. And we could miss the opportunity to achieve something really, really special because we weren't active enough in the transfer market. But then I get to the question of, right, then who? And so we talk about some of the names that we've been talking about. Benjamin Sesko, well, doesn't want to move right now. RB Leipzig will not sell right now. So that one becomes impossible. You think about Victor Gyökeres and you think Sporting would want north of 80 million euros for him. Is he worth that? I'm not sure. Probably not. Then you think about John Duran, who we've just mentioned. Again, if Villa were willing to do a deal at 60, 65 million, I'm open to it. But if they're talking 75, 80 million, then no, it's not worth it. And so you get to this point where the values or the valuations of these players have been so overinflated that you almost can't afford to take a gamble on someone anymore. And so you have to go for your priority targets. You have to put all your effort and focus on getting your priority targets. But that might mean that you have to wait another few months. And nobody's going to accept that. Nobody's going to accept Arsenal having to wait another 6 months to get their striker in. I'm not going to accept Arsenal doing zero business between now and when the window shuts. So I've come to the opinion, after long being frustrated by, the lack of movement and, the lack of progress in maybe our pursuit of some of our primary targets, I've very much come to the point now where I'm just like, well, is there someone out there that can be a short-term solution? Is there someone out there that can come and help us in the interim? A bit like when Manchester United signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I'm not saying you go and sign a 40-year-old, but you get where I'm going with this, right? They brought him in, short period, short contract. He came in, did a really good job for a period of time, gave them a little upturn and a lift at the start, which was enough to make a difference. And listen, we've only got half a season left, right? So we don't need someone who's going to come in and be a huge resounding success over the long term. We need someone who's going to come in and give us that boost and lift that we need right now. So then do you start looking at some more experienced campaigners? You know, Man United have done it a few times. Henrik Larsson, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the past. Barcelona used Henrik Larsson to that effect as well. Now, I know Henrik Larsson's and Zlatan Ibrahimovic's don't exactly grow on trees, but you get where I'm going with it. Do we look for someone who is an impact player that can come in and help us for the next 6, 8, 9, 12 months and then go big in the summer? Because if we can't get our primary target now and we go and drop a ton of money on a player that we're not even sure that we want, it could impact what we're then able to do in the summer, which then sets us back in the process rather than sees us moving forward. So I don't envy the club's position right now. I don't envy the position of those responsible for trying to identify who that player is going to be, because it's got to be financially viable. It's got to be achievable over the course of the next few days. And that makes this a really, really difficult deal to do. A really, really difficult deal to do. Michael in the chat says, excuses, FC, rinse and repeat. Listen, I don't think there are any excuses. I think Arsenal have needed a striker for the best part of probably 12, 18 months now, and they haven't acted and they haven't done it. So that is on the football club, and they should be held accountable for the fact that we're at the end of this January window and we're all pulling our hair out about our lack of signings. Like, that's on the club. It absolutely is on the club. Nobody's making an excuse for them. But now that we're in this position, we have to make the best of this position. And for me, to make the best of this position, we need to go and get someone in who can have a short-term impact. Someone on loan, maybe from overseas. We are allowed to do that. We are able to do that. We're able to bring in an overseas loan because we've hit our quota of Premier League of Premier League loan. So we can't bring anyone in from this division in terms of a loan deal. But yeah, I'm frustrated because we shouldn't be in this position. I'm frustrated because it never should have got to this. It was obvious that we needed an attacker before Bukayo Saka got injured. Bukayo Saka gets injured and then the need becomes greater. But it feels to me, and I can't know this, right? Because I'm not privy to what goes on within the football club. But it felt to me like the kick up the backside was when Gabriel Jesus got that injury, when actually the kick up the backside should have happened weeks before that. And so if we're unable to strike a deal for one of our primary targets, partly because we've acted too late in the window, then again, that is on us as a football club and not anybody else. We should have known prior to Jesus' injury that we were short. We should have known at that point that we were desperate. And again, let me be clear. I don't know that the club weren't actively working after the update on Saka and sorry, let me rephrase it. Let me make sure I'm being clear. I don't know that they weren't working after the Saka injury. I don't know that they only started looking after the Jesus injury, but it certainly felt like more noises were coming out of the club to the effect of, yes, we're actively looking post that injury, in which case it's too late. And that might be part of the reason, not solely the reason, but part of the reason why we find ourselves in the position that we find ourselves in now, where we're stuck and we can't get our primary targets in and we're struggling to get those deals over the line. I don't know. Anyway, let's take some of your thoughts and some of your questions on this. Just a quick reminder as well that we'll be bringing you a live watch along of tonight's game against Girona in the Champions League. Join us from 7:45 p.m. tonight on the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel, and we'll keep you across every single kick. I'm planning to do something a little bit different to what you normally find on the internet when it comes to watch along. So please come over, join me, check it out, let me know your thoughts, and I'd love to have you guys on board. Right, let's take some of your questions then. Christopher Ward says, Harry Kane, here we go. Can you imagine? Could you imagine? Moosh says, are there any players you may have heard with inside knowledge that we are linked with? Honestly, mate, no. I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend and gaslight people. I don't know of any targets that Arsenal are actively pursuing or that they're close to doing a deal with. I'm kind of sitting here on eggshells, just like everybody else, hoping that I'm going to refresh X and there's going to be an update on a player that we'd all love us to see signing, or there's going to be an update to the effect of Arsenal working on this deal, etc., etc. This is a great point from Kurt, because we get this a lot in the chat. People just like suggesting that everything we say is an excuse. Look, he says, what's the point of discussing anything football if the reasons are excuses? Yeah, there are reasons for everything in the world, and they're not always excuses. Context is really, really important. Keith Bird says, it is what it is. I wish I was that relaxed and chilled about the whole situation. Look, I've said it already. I've said it earlier on in the window, and I'll reiterate this point once again now. I'd rather we don't go and drop £70 million, for instance, on a player that I just don't think is the answer. And I'd rather we wait to the summer if that's our only option. But surely there is a short-term solution out there that is financially viable for the club that can come in and just give us a boost. I said this on TalkSport a few weeks ago, and people laughed at me. I mentioned Alvaro Morata, not because I think Alvaro Morata specifically is the player that we should be looking to bring in, but a player who's kind of at that stage in his career, who's got a great record of having scored goals and having impacted football teams. And Alvaro Morata was laughed at when he was at Chelsea, but his career outside of Chelsea has been very, very impressive. I thought he was outstanding at the European Championships. Again, the point is not go and sign Alvaro Morata. The point is there someone out there of that mold, of that ilk, who's been there, done it, who is an experienced campaigner, who would be interested in a loan move to the Premier League, whose club would be interested in having his wages taken care of for a period of time to ease their perhaps financial issues and constraints? And can we get that type of player in just to give us a boost and help us in the interim? Doesn't, like, we're looking at a short-term fix now, it feels like, given that we're at this stage of the window. So it doesn't have to be a 21, 22, 23-year-old. It can be a 31, 32, 33-year-old, because, again, we're looking at a short-term solution, I think. I really do think that. Let's take some more of your comments. Shane Power says, any more updates on Martin Zubimendi? Seems to have gone quiet again. No, as far as I'm aware, Arsenal are in the driving seat to sign him in the summer. But I know that at this moment in time, that's not what people's minds are on. Their minds are on now, the here and now. Can we do something? Can we make something happen in that forward department? I'd love Zubimendi to come to the club, but I've very, very much in my own head parked that one. And I'm looking at looking at the here and now. Live Fit says, media like you and Tom are to blame because you push PR for the club. You're just making excuses for the club and a useless manager. Okay, mate, whatever. I don't even know why I read that out. I guess I just wanted to highlight some of the ridiculous comments that we do get in the live streams. As much as I love the live streams, there is some absolute nonsense and drivel that comes from that type of viewer. It's funny because they always slag it off the show. They always claim that it's nothing more than a PR vehicle and as if Arsenal are behind it or something. Yet they're here every single episode, which I find amazing. Let's see. Whatever you say, taking a punt on Evan Ferguson for 30 to 40 million pounds is a risk worth taking, in my opinion. Yeah, I toyed with the idea on the bonus pod that we did yesterday. 30, 40 million pounds. If we did have as strong an interest in him as we were said to have in the past, then 30 to 40 million pounds as a price tag might tempt Arsenal back in. But at the moment, it looks like he's going. Elsewhere. To be honest, it looks like he's heading to Bayer Leverkusen. Deflected Mind said, Harry, suggest some good Arsenal podcasters, please, especially your favourites. Obviously, Tom Canton, the Gooner Talk, is a massive friend of mine. So check his out. I love the Arsenal Vision. I love the Arscast. I really enjoy the different Knox videos at the moment. There's so many great Arsenal content creators at the moment. So go and check them out. Highbury Squad is great as well. What else have we got? What else have we got? What else have we got? Someone agreeing with my Morata shout. Olu says Retegi. Someone else brought up Retegi to me yesterday in a WhatsApp group, and I was like, where is that? Where is that come from? Is it one of those reports that's come from one of those very shady Italian media outlets? I don't know. Matteo Retegi, 25 years old, currently plays his football for Atalanta. Has got 3 goals in the Champions League so far this season and 16 goals in the Serie A, which is really, really impressive. But would Atalanta let him go right now? I don't know. And I've never been massively impressed with Matteo Retegi in the past. And so I'm struggling to see what we're seeing right now as anything more than a bit of a purple patch. So that's where maybe my reservation comes through. Some questions. Here we go. Live fit. Let me just address this, right? He says, when I said that it's wild to claim that the club are sort of behind this, he says, you are defending the club to keep your Arsenal commentary job. We see through you. Let me just clarify something here, because I think this is really, really important, because I get this a lot. And that's why I'm highlighting it, right? You're defending the club to keep your Arsenal commentary job. I have not defended the club in this episode. I've said it 5-6 times that it's on the club if Arsenal don't get what they need between now and the end of the window. I said it's on the club, in my opinion, that we're in this position where at the end of the window, we're looking around now for scraps. It's on the club. That's not me defending the club. I think you need to get your ears cleaned out, mate. But also this thing about my commentary job. I'm a freelance football commentator who works for multiple different companies, and I work for Arsenal once in a while. It's not my regular job. It's not my main job. I love doing it. It's a privilege to work for my football club, of course. But it's not my bread and butter. So why would I sacrifice being successful in my bread and butter to cover for a job that I only do once in a blue moon? Like, that would make no business sense. So yeah, like, your point is so flawed and it's such a load of nonsense, and I shouldn't really waste my time or energy or the listeners' time even addressing this stuff. But from time to time, I think it's worth highlighting how much crap people in this line of work have to take from people who have no clue about how the industry works that they are commenting on. Anyway, let's take a couple more of your comments before I go off into the sunshine, because the sun's come out in North London. It's still probably freezing, but the sun's come out. What else have we got in the chat? Let me see what we got. Hold on. Deflected Mind says United fans are making merry for signing Cheeto and Heaven. Should we be worried because young talent is joining other clubs? I think what's happened there, and you know, we had a similar situation, didn't we, with Ethan Nwaneri when you know, he was waiting to sign his pro contract, and a number of clubs came in and were circling and were trying to convince him that that was the right place to go. I think the issue that you get, right, is, so like, someone like, I never really understood it with Chido Obi Martin, because he was so much younger and so much further down the pecking order that he hadn't earned his stripes yet. Okay, so when he chose to go to Manchester United, I was a bit like, mate, who do you think you are? Like, you're not at that level yet to be A, demanding what he was demanding, and B, to be at the point where you know, you deserve to be in and around the first team setup. Someone like Aiden Heaven is a little bit closer to it. We've seen him make appearances, and so he's probably at the stage where he has to think about and look at maybe what the next few years hold for his career, because we've seen so many young talents come through at big football clubs and just fade away and end up at clubs far further down the pyramid. And so you don't want to do that, right? But also, you got to look at the opportunities that are in front of you. He's not going to get in ahead of Gabriel or Saliba. He's not going to get in ahead of Calafiori. Ben White's going to be ahead of him, even in the centre-back ranks. Tomiyasu will be when he's back. Timber will be. And so he probably looks at that particular area of the pitch where we're very well stocked and thinks there isn't really a future for me there. Then you add in the financials. Arsenal as a football club are not going to throw a mad contract at a kid who's yet to turn professional. They just don't do that. It's not the way that they operate. And I think in a way, it kind of weeds out the ones who are interested in progression and playing for our great football club, so that you can then focus on them, and it weeds out, I should say, the ones that are too quick to want everything, the ones that don't really have the patience or the discipline to work hard and get to where they. And I'm not saying this of Aiden Heaven because I don't know the guy, and it's not really fair for me to sit and sort of essentially character assassinate him. But I do think that there's a lot of young players that are in such a rush to start earning the big bucks, that they do get swayed and have their heads turned by clubs like Manchester United when they come in and offer much more money. Also, Manchester United can probably offer him a clearer pathway to the first team because at centre back they're quite frankly woeful. So there's that as well. But I do think, sometimes I think it's the right thing not to throw money at players of that age. Like Ethan Nwaneri is an unbelievable talent, and I would have been upset if Arsenal didn't do everything within their power to keep them. Am I as convinced? Have I ever been as convinced about Aiden Heaven to the point where I would say, abandon the structure, abandon your principles, go above and beyond just to make that deal happen? No, like I don't feel that way about Aiden Heaven. So it's not a massive deal to me. Like I'd have rather he stayed, but he hasn't, and he's going there, and that's fine. And I'll be watching on to see how he fares over the coming sort of months and years. Afsar says, do you think Edu's departure has impacted the transfer window at Arsenal? Difficult to say. I know we've touched on this subject in recent episodes. It is difficult to say with any sort of degree of certainty. But what I will say is, if there's no sporting director in place and there's only an interim sporting director in place, it surely doesn't help, does it? It doesn't put you in a stronger position. It does weaken your position to some degree. And I always felt that Edu had that charm. I always felt that Edu had that ability to walk into a room and light it up, to speak to someone and convince them. And I don't know that Jason Ato, who's currently acting in that role, has that. Now, that's not to say that he definitely doesn't. I just don't know that he has it. And for that reason, it's impossible to sit here and pretend that, Edu's departure would have nothing to do with what's been a really underwhelming and disappointing transfer window so far. Again, equally, you can't say that is the problem, but by that same token, how can you rule out the fact that his departure has caused some issue? It might have impacted plans. It might have impacted deals that were maybe already close. And we've had to backtrack on stuff. We've had to turn our attention elsewhere, which then takes time in terms of identifying new players, which might have caused the delay. That means that we are now at the end of January, having yet to make the signing that we also desperately think the team needs. It's a really good question. It's a really good point. And I guess time will tell. Will Arsenal become stronger in the transfer market when it comes to buying and selling, or will we see Arsenal take a step backwards? And then maybe we can start to look at that Edu departure as a reason. Okay, I am going to leave it there. But before I do that, guys, I just want to quickly remind you all that this video is brought to you by the good people over at Stocks FC. On Stocks FC, you can trade and buy stocks in your favorite footballers. In doing so, you build a portfolio upon which you can then earn money from. Invest in players when their stock is low and bank on them to improve in their real life performances, which has a knock-on impact on their stock value, or buy players that you think are sure things and watch your portfolio maintain its value while growing at the same time. You can approach it in any which way you'd like. And if you'd like to have a go at Stocks FC, you can scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and claim your 5 free stocks. Those stocks will be eligible to pay you out for the first month. So do check them out in terms of any profit and bonus points that you make. And you can start to build your portfolio today. We thank them for their support of the show. What I do want to stress is that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Only play Stocks FC if you can afford to. It is a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm not doing as well as I probably should be, because I've opted for a rather unorthodox approach. I've invested in players who I think are really, really struggling at the moment, with the hope that when they turn it around, I'll see the value of my portfolio increase. I'm playing the long game. You can play it any which way you like, but just to be clear, it isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a bit of fun. Please don't put anything into it that you can't afford, because that is not advisable. It is a game, and it's great fun, but obviously be responsible in the way that you play it. Stocks FC, we thank them for their support of the Chronicles of a Gooner here on YouTube. And yeah, I'll keep you across how my journey's going over the course of our upcoming videos. Right then, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll see you all tonight, hopefully, on the watch along. Girona versus Arsenal, live from 7:45 on the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel. Come and join me for an interactive watch along, a little bit different to what you normally get on YouTube. And yeah, I can't wait. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, I'll see you all then, hopefully. The link is in the description, by the way, if you want to open the tab and have it there, just to make sure that you don't miss it. Until the next one, take care of yourselves and have a great Wednesday. Can Arsenal do it tonight in Girona? Big, big game.